Agenda development in advance of a meeting is extremely important.
Planning an agenda thoroughly before a meeting is key.
Planning ahead, having the agenda, doing your preliminary work to get prepared for the meetings makes the meetings very productive.
It's very important to have good planning and an agenda set out ahead of time that both sides have an opportunity to review.
You have to have some backup for what you want to talk about. You want to have the information.
So there's no surprises when you sit at your meeting.
Right. Surprising your counterpart is not the way to go. You don't want to spring something on them because then they don't know how to react and they may react negatively.
I'm not going to go into a meeting and try to blindside Rod with something that he's not prepared to answer.
In developing the agenda, we want the topic there. We want to know what is the topic. Is it going to be a lot of discussion? Is it a question and answer period? We also want to know what is the result that we want to come out of this discussion.
The 6-step process enables you to proceed, to develop the ideas, to follow through on the ideas, and have a valuable discussion when you actually sit down and meet.
The agenda. On the surface, it's nothing more than a list of things to talk about.
But creating the agenda for your committee meetings is not a simple task, and it begins earlier than you might think.
In fact, when it's fully developed and well prepared, the agenda will serve as the foundation of your committee activity and the cornerstone of your success.
Agenda development is a process that begins immediately after each committee meeting and takes you through to the next meeting.
In this way, your committee does the majority of its work in between meetings, while you are generating a list of agenda items that are appropriate for a labor management committee, that cover areas of mutual concern and are well researched.
In this module, we'll introduce a 6-step process for agenda development. To provide a quick reference for each of the steps, we'll refer to this visual timeline throughout. As you can see, LMC meetings mark the beginning and the end of the timeline, so the agenda development work we'll be discussing all takes place between these two benchmarks. So let's get started. We've got a lot of work to do.
Good agenda development for a labor management committee meeting begins as soon as the previous one is over. In step 1, the co-chairs set a deadline for exchanging agenda items. Without something on the calendar, it's too easy to forget or put this off. So instead, we recommend that on the way out of each meeting, you set a deadline for exchanging items for the next meeting's agenda. Choosing a date 10 to 20 days prior to the next meeting is usually a good range because it allows you time to review the other team's proposed items, finalize the agenda, and prepare your team's discussion points and questions. So actually, step 1 is setting the date for step number 4, which we'll talk about in a few minutes.
Next, it's time for open submission. In step 2, the co-chairs and committee members identify agenda items. In addition to generating their own agenda items, co-chairs and committee members should encourage colleagues to make use of the committee forum by suggesting agenda items. After all, elevating issues from the entire workforce is what the labor management meeting process is all about. To make sure these suggestions are thorough and well thought out, encourage submitters to use the proposed agenda item submission form. This tool asks contributors to describe the issue, the background information, attempts that have been made to resolve it, the change that is desired, the benefit to finding a solution, and some ideas for addressing it. The form not only helps sort out which items are appropriate to cover at a meeting, it also helps submitters feel more empowered because issues are thoroughly documented with facts and ideas. This keeps your process proactive and solution-focused.
Step 3. Review, prioritize, and research agenda items. Once all of the submissions for agenda items have been collected, it's up to the co-chairs to review the proposals and prioritize them into a logical sequence. Chairs should make sure that the items submitted have been well researched and documented. They should also check that the proposed agenda items are areas of mutual concern. This means that coming to resolution on the issue will be beneficial to both parties. Because this is an important distinction, let's hear from some other committee members about what types of issues should be chosen for the agendas of labor management committee meetings and what should not.
Some of the issues that belong on a labor management agenda might be like bidding processes for work locations, summer work hours.
A large, broad issue that would benefit both sides of the table.
You should be settling some issues, but gaining others, like working together towards grants, working together towards education, working together as being partners.
Items that really impact the organizational atmosphere, I think, are very important. What are some of the positive things that labor management can do?
Agenda items that are identified as mutual concern, I think, are ones that we would look to as being the most valuable for us to have.
In a nutshell, things that don't belong on an agenda would be anything that violate the contract.
Things where there may be a grievance.
Personal issues with one particular employee.
If it's somebody's specific name or specific incident, we try not to mention it, only for, confidentiality purposes, and not everybody at that table may need to know that information.
Hopefully that helps clarify what does and doesn't belong at a labor management committee meeting. This advice should help guide the choice and prioritization of agenda items for step 3.
Once the co-chairs complete their proposals, it's time for them to exchange the agenda items and discuss. This is step 4, the one we set a date for at the previous meeting. At least 2 weeks prior to the meeting, co-chairs should get together, talk about the proposed agenda, obtain any additional information required, and agree on the format of the meeting. It's finally starting to come together.
Step 5 is about making it official. Finalize and distribute the agenda to all LMC members. Once the co-chairs have agreed on the issues that will be covered at the meeting, one of them creates an official roadmap agenda. The roadmap is a chart that is used before, during, and after the meeting to track issues. Before the meeting, it's partially complete, listing agenda items, the desired outcome, and the time allotted for each. There is also room on the form to take notes during the meeting about key discussion points, the decisions made, and the action items required for completion. Using the roadmap format to formalize the agenda gives everyone on both sides of the committee an excellent sense of what will be covered at the meeting, so they can prepare properly.
So now for the final preparations. In step 6, the union and management teams prepare for the meeting. Each group should have its own discussion in advance of the meeting to prepare their own presentation. All agenda items should be thoroughly researched, and the team should come up with several proposed solutions for each issue. They also go over the other side's agenda items and prepare any related questions and concerns.
So in review, here's the 6-step process of agenda development that takes place in between LMC meetings. Step 1, set a deadline for exchanging agenda items.
Step 2, identify agenda items.
Step 3, review, prioritize, and research agenda items.
Step 4, exchange proposed agenda items and discuss.
Step 5, finalize and distribute the roadmap agenda.
And step 6, prepare for the meeting.
Using this process will ensure that you make the most out of the time that you spend in the room with your labor management committee and maximize your productivity and success.
You really have to have an agenda that's been vetted with both labor and management. They know what's on there. They are prepared to discuss it, and you can get some business done.
It's very important that the co-chairs show the rest of the committee that they are committed to the process.
My role to set the tone for a labor management meeting would be to meet with my team early, let them know what the agenda is. All of us as a team discuss the agenda and go into the meeting with an answer that we all agree on.
And the follow-up is very important of it too. I mean, if you don't have the organization, you don't know where you've been, so you don't know where you're going.
Having a formal agenda development process makes the most of the labor management meeting.